so I'm going to really try and make it in time. So for the guests, I think the first question is probably going to be the only one that we're going to be able to deal with. And I'm going to ask to all the panel members, and I would really like us to do it as interactively as possible. So should there be a question that you may want to ask, just raise your hand, or use the WhatsApp or the SMS, and I'll try and deal with those as well. The question's really, we've heard a lot about how we can improve drilling and blasting to improve ground conditions. I think that was basically the theme of today, and I would like the panel members to share with us, perhaps for you, what is the most important aspect of improving drilling and blasting that you take out of today? And I would let me start with Mike, if you will, Mike. Perhaps the most important thing, to take out of today, what is the most important thing for you that we can do to improve ground conditions?
Thanks a lot, and good afternoon. I think a number of the presentations touched on the fact that it's not a single factor that drives improvement. Improvements comes out of focusing on the entire system and on people, processes, technology, and so on. And I think, in my experience, we are quite good at analysing and coming to the causes of poor performance when we're dealing with systems and technology. Less so, and not just analysing and diagnosing, but also developing plans and executing those plans, maybe with varying degrees of success, but be fairly okay in terms of tackling those things and dealing with them. When it comes to the people factors, though, I think that's the area where we really struggle. And I think sometimes we believe or we think we know what the issue is, but we don't really have what we need to get to the real bottom of the people issues. And for me, that is kind of the real big step forward. Is first of all understanding what are causing those people issues, and then getting our managers and frontline supervisors developed and I don't want to say trained, but really developed and grown to a point where they can actually deal with the people working for them and under them, the people that they're leading, so that they are able to deal with those people factors and once you can deal with that, I think you then are able to take a step change forward. So that's my contribution.
Yeah, thank you very much, Mike. And I think for me, very important. I think it's not a silver bullet. I think it's a full-on change management process. And hence, I suppose for me, why I'm so excited, Duncan, Andre, that we're actually following the Marsh adoption process in drilling and blasting. I mean, the leadership behavior, the behavioral communication, which is the part of bringing the people together with technology. So thank you very much for that. Alvin, could we have your thoughts?
Yeah, thanks, Bayers. I told Bayers right up front not to ask me the difficult questions. I'm the only one without an MBA here, but I did start as an actually. So I hope that counts. I'm not going to take anything away from the change professionals here, also not from the systems engineers here. And I think we've been taught today that things fits into systems. So I don't want to take anything away from there. And also what Mike has said, that you got to approach things as a system. But just simplistically speaking, for me as a gold miner, and unlike other guys, I didn't move along between the different mines. So I've grown up in the underground tough environment on the gold mines. And yes, we do not have the old ship bosses that we used to have, and the old miners that walked around with their compass sticks. We don't have that. Time moved on since the CMTC, and I think the CMTC here in Randfontein is now Boys Town. But how do we deal with our challenges today with people? And I think it comes down to one of the very first presentations for me. If we want to improve drilling and blasting, and drilling and blasting does affect safety. I have been to many fall of ground sites where people were killed, the person was killed where the bad blasting practices did damage the hanging wall. Yes, we have difficult ground conditions because of geology, etc. But blasting just adds to that. And if we can do that correctly, I think we can go a long way. So the single most important thing for me, and I'm sure that fits somewhere into the system, is accurate drilling. It was said right in the beginning, if we can get accurate drilling, but it's very difficult to drill. And I don't think training is such a big challenge for us really. I think we can all improve and we can learn a lot from one another. But applying what we've learned underground in the environment that we are working in underground is for me a big challenge. So I don't know how many of you have actually drilled a couple of holes, not one hole, a couple of holes underground with the rock drill. It's bloody tough. It's bloody tough. So this guy needs to work on the face with this rock drill, and we're going to pay him a couple of rand to give up his assistant as well. And I think we all tried that. Try and do that on your own. Try and collar with the machine on your own, and keep that thing on the mark that the miner has put onto the face. It's bloody tough. Working in between the temporary support, maneuvering the machine around in a low stoping area, it's bloody tough. So people do take shortcuts. They try and make life easier. And the one reason for that is probably because they don't see the consequence of what they do. Drilling a skew hole or drilling into the hanging wall does impact on his safety, but that's not what he sees immediately. What he experiences right now is the toughness of the job he's going to do to earn a salary. And I do understand it's not a nice job. So there are few people who are in this game because it's a career path. They're in this game to earn money. So we got to think around realities of what we're dealing with when we try and improve blasting practice. I'll give it to you.
Good afternoon, everyone, and Alwyn, to answer your question, yes, I have, and yes, it is that. I think for me, maybe the problem lies with the fact that you get engineers, it's mining engineers and all different engineers that try and solve the problem. And I think you very quickly jump to how can we, through technology or innovation, or through setting up a better system, try and resolve the issue. Maybe we should learn more from Rita to understand what is the human behavior. The word behavior, in essence, I don't necessarily like because it's got a negative connotation, certainly for me, being a Boertjie, and also trying to speak Potchefstroom English. But behavior for me has got a negative connotation. Because whenever my boss called me and he said, I need to talk to you about your behavior, it was certainly not to give me an increase. So I think it's rather a work practice. And we need to understand why the work practices are, and why it's taking place the way that it is taking place. We saw now today that the machines that we're using is 100 years old, and it looks different, and it's got different paint on it, and it's a different salesman that works in, but in essence it's the same thing. So I think we need to understand the workforce have changed. It's not people that aren't or illiterate still and take anything. We're sitting with people that's got a good scholastic qualification. So I think they've also got aspirations. And one of the things that came out for me very clear that Rita then presented is that there's no career for the driller because it's difficult to find them. So once you've got a driller, you don't want to promote him out of the position, which is unfair to the individual as well. So I think there's more to it on the soft side that we need to look at and understand the way that it goes. And the second piece for me is, being part of a company that's investing a lot of money in technology at the moment. Can we do it differently? Absolutely. There's no doubt in my mind. However, for us, the challenge that we sit with is that we still need excavations. We still need to start off with an excavation, the moment, the only way of means to do it is through handheld drilling. And then secondly, the thing that we want to do is go back into our biggest opportunity in deep level gold mining, or gold mining in South Africa as such, sits in pillars or isolated blocks of ground, call it what you want. But that's where it sits. It's areas that we left behind years ago for very good reason. A lot of them sits in high-grade areas, and that's where we'd like to go back. If we go back to those areas, we're very early in this path that we're going down, decided that you cannot blast them. You cannot cause the extra fractures, you cannot put more energy into rock, etc., etc. However, at the moment, that is the only way to open up that block of ground, is to drill and blast practices. So, can we drill rock? Absolutely. Can we do it differently than drill and blast? Yes, once you've got the access. But I think the challenge for us as technical people is, how do we get the access there? How do we develop mechanized means that can keep up with the rate of the rock boring as we see it at the moment? So you can open it up, but you need a rate that's much faster than what we can do at the moment.
Thank you, Randall. I just want to get back to something that Alban said, and it also came out in some of the presentations, was that it's maybe not so much about training, and maybe not so much, it's more on the execution side. You know, how do we get people to execute a proper drilling pattern? How do we get people to execute the proper face marking? How do we get people to execute the proper charging up? So I suppose on that, Chadwick, if I may, I mean, how can we improve the role that supervisors play in terms of trying to improve the effectiveness of the implementation of standards that we have?
Yeah. Before I talk about the supervisor, I think I'll come back to the supervisor, because there's one gentleman that actually summed it all up for me during the course of today. I must just get his name. It's the gentleman that spoke about his experience as a miner. Richard. Was it Richard? I'd like to come back to what Richard was talking about, but before I talk about what Richard spoke about, I want to talk about what Fred highlighted to us. Sometimes we make things far too complicated. Mining is not as complicated as we make it out to be. I always say to people, there's one thing we need to do in mining to be successful. We blast every single panel, every single day. That's what we're trying to do on a daily basis. Having said that, I think all the issues we've discussed today are relevant. There are people issues, there are behavioral issues, there are technical challenges. We find it difficult to find the skills. People have moved on, they're not as strong as they used to be, Fred. We don't teach people the way we used to teach them. But what Richard summed up for me, you cannot expect and ask somebody to do something without you being able to show him how to do it. You need to be able to demonstrate what you want people to do. And what we find ourselves in at the moment is our inability to transfer knowledge and skill. If you look at all the miners we have today, all our shift supervisors we have today, all the mine overseers we have today, one question we should ask ourselves, a lot of us sitting up here with experience, how were we trained? Right from being a miner to a shift boss to a mine overseer, versus how we actually training our people at the moment. We all talk about the so-called Yamtar school, and how we were taught to build packs, to drill a machine for months on end, and all those sorts of things. Do we put our people through the same as we speak? At the moment, we don't. We take our people off the street, we put them in a classroom, we teach them the theory, we get them a blasting certificate, and we put them underground and we say, go mine. And the riches of this world, we don't keep. The riches of this world is going to take that knowledge, work with somebody for a couple of months, impart that knowledge, we let them go. More often when we restructure our organizations, we open up the so-called VSPs. And the people that have had their innings in this industry are the first ones to apply, and they move out. We do not hang on to that knowledge and skill that we've developed over years. We actually let it go. And that is why we find ourselves at the moment with a workforce that is not able to deliver what we expect them to deliver. And when you're right, it's bloody hard. I drilled the rock drill for 3 months. And the reason why I did that is based on what Richard was teaching us this afternoon. Is when you get into that panel, and the RDO is not drilling that hole correctly, you take the rock drill and you demonstrate to that RDO what it is that you want him to do. Telling him what you want him to do is not going to get that message across. If you demonstrate it, that's a very different story. So yes, it is hard work. And I'll say again, all the issues we've discussed, we must not ignore. It's not just one issue. We talk about systems, but it's more than just systems. It's people behavior issues. Yes, it's system issues. We change one thing and it's got an impact on something else. So you need to look at the complete system. The other issue that we addressed today was around mechanization. Can we mechanize? Absolutely. Can we mechanize all over? Absolutely not. The ore body is very unforgiving. We've got a lot of examples. Vaal Reef's 10 shaft was supposed to be a mechanized mine. The first blast we took on that mine was conventional. There's two, I'm not going to name the company, but there are two shafts that were supposed to be mechanized shafts on the platinum belt. The first blast we took, or the first production that was produced, was conventional. Why? Because the ore body did not allow mechanization to take place. And somebody made a statement today about horses for courses. And that is what it's about. We need to identify where the ore body will allow us to mechanize, and there we can mechanize. Some areas where we can't mechanize, we must accept. We're going to have handheld drilling, and we're going to have people doing manual work, because that's the only way you're going to negotiate some geology in the way our mines are set up, or way it was set up for us. So I think it's across the board that we need to do that. I think I have touched a little bit on the supervisory issues as well. We're currently facing that challenge as Sibanye Gold. We actually tested our mine overseers and our shift supervisors on drilling and blasting practice. Do yourself a favor, go test your people. The results are horrific. In fact, what we found was that the mine overseers who are not there directly every day, on the face, working with people on a daily basis, scored higher than the shift supervisors. And the shift supervisors are the people that are there every day in and day out, supposed to be coaching people in terms of what we expect people to do on a daily basis. So we have failed our people in terms of how we've developed them over time. And I would suggest that we reconsider how we train our people. And I'll say again, let's take lessons out of what Richard just actually taught us today. It is as basic as it comes in mining, but it is a very good message that he's put across to us in terms of his experience, not only in terms of the technical side, in terms of how he teaches people and coaches people, is how he works with people. The relationship that he has with the people that works with him. Because relationships and respect and those issues that we all talk about goes a long way in getting people to listen what you're trying to tell them and listen to what you're trying to demonstrate to them. If you're talking down on them, you're not going to get your message across. If you talk with them, you're going to get a much better message across. That's my view on it.
Thank you very much. I'd then like, if you'll allow, we're out of time, but I want to open the floor for 5 minutes, and I'll do the roaming around with the mic. So if there are any questions to the distinguished panel members, I think we'll allow for time to take that now. And the question was, what would be the first thing, if you go back to the mine, that you're going to change, if I've got it right, sir, in order to improve drilling and blasting? First thing that you change tomorrow morning.
I'll keep it short. I think the thing that I was thinking of is how do I make it easier for the rock drill operator to be able to drill a hole at full length, the right direction, on the face, on the right mark. I mean, we should think of how do we make the job easier for that man. That's the first thing.
Just from my side, I wouldn't change anything right now in terms of what we're currently busy doing. As I said, we're also embarking at the moment. In fact, before we started with this process through the Morsch process, we started with drilling and blasting practice. It's something that I identified as a single issue that can change a hell of a lot in terms of what we do. It's not just safety. There's some productivity issues. There's some cost issues if you talk stoping with and fragmentation and those sorts of issues that we heard people touch on today. What I would do is probably Keith, William, the two VPs here with me today, is probably change what the process that we've sketched out for ourselves. I've picked up a couple of issues today that I would probably enhance what we're trying to do. One of them is exactly what I say again, the message that Richard was trying to get across in terms of how we coach our miners in terms of the process we're going to follow. But I wouldn't change something immediately because knee-jerk is not a good thing to do when you're busy with the process. Go and evaluate your own process and see how you can enhance your process based on what I've heard here today.
Thank you very much, Hedwig. I'm going to try and ask another question, but before I do that, I just want to offer another comment. One thing that resonated with me today was, apart from all the systemic things, was also the basics behind the science of drilling and blasting. And I took a lot out of Frick's presentation, and I took a lot out of the gentleman of Sassel's presentation, and I think we can just get people on the minds. I thought to myself, if I sit here and I go back to my general managers tomorrow, I mean, who actually understands? I think the words have said, do we really know? We think we know, do we really know? So also just refreshing the actual science behind drilling and blasting and having a better understanding of that in order to use that to our advantage. We learned today that things have changed, and we should really try and use that to our advantage. There was another question here.
Mine's a simple one. It's just a question of drill steel length. 1.5 meter sloping width, channel probably about 130. What would you guys recommend as the ideal drill steel length?
You know the answer to that one. Drill steel length is a function of your ability to clean that panel. You can drill any steel on the panel. Obviously, dust factor. Let me not take away what the explosives guys were teaching us today in terms of damage to the hanging wall and the surrounding rock. But it's a function of your ability to clean. You can clean a 1.5 meter round. You can drill a 1.5 meter round. You need to time it probably, obviously, and put up the, put in the right design in terms of your hole designs and so on. But for me, it's about the cleaning. And somebody spoke about cleaning. In fact, I think it was a gentleman from Cecil that spoke about the whole process. It starts with the ability to clean. If you can clean it, I think, Fred, you probably touched on it as well, I can't recall. But if you can clean it, you can get through the cycle, then drilling and blasting shouldn't be an issue, irrespective of the length of drill steel that you use.
I just want to agree with that and say, I firmly believe that we are creatures of habit. If you've got a cycle that's set, you can understand and you can comply to that cycle, you will definitely improve.
Thank you, gentlemen. And perhaps another comment. Something that I took out today is very often we want these generic standards. We think at each mine, at that channel width, that sloping width, that's going to be the solution. I think what I took out today, it's actually very much a science of specifics. It's actually very much a science of understanding the exact application and what would work best there. Thank you for your comments.
I've heard today that it was better in olden days, or we've done it better because of the Young Town School. So why did we stop Young Town Schools and can't we bring it back?
Very good, tough question. I'm going to put it to Mike first.
Well, let me start by saying I didn't stop the Young Town School. Unfortunately, that was a decision of government. I think those were government and chamber facilities, and at some point it was decided to stop them. Personally, I think it would be a very good thing if we did bring it back in some form or another to do training in the industry. But I don't think it's just because we stopped the Young Town Schools as we called it. And I think at the time we joined the industry, we all experienced those Young Town Schools where the training was pretty good. I also think it's got to do with the way we train people, and Shadrach touched on it. We do a lot of theoretical training, and we do training to certificate people. We don't necessarily do training to develop leaders and supervisors that we require, and that to me is probably a bigger problem. So going back to a guy like Richard, I think one of the reasons why he has been so successful in his career as a mine and a shift supervisor goes around his ability to engage with people and lead people. That's what I read into his presentation, and a lot of this goes around the basic foundation of a relationship is trust and respect, as you said. And once that's there, you can then start building on that. But so that was my comment right at the beginning. if we can get ourselves into a position where we can inculcate that into our supervisors and leaders at a very early level in their career, I think we would go a big step forward. So it's not just getting those schools in place, it's what we actually do in those schools.
Yeah, can I ask either Randall or Alwyn or Chadwick to comment as well?
Now, maybe just directly to that answer, I think Angela is probably leading the way here, but with myself personally, have obviously paid attention to what Anglo Platts is doing with the School of Mines, using underground facilities to almost bring back that type of arrangement. It's probably not a Yam Tau school as we know it, but I think it's a similar type approach that you guys are trying to do there. And myself and Peter, we spoke about something similar at our Kloof 10 shop, that we could possibly introduce a similar type concept so that we can teach people properly underground, on the job, without putting them in a classroom. And I think it is the way to go.
I just want to add something. I think training is in our control. It's not who stopped the Yam Tau school, who did this. Training is in our control. We can do with training what we want to. So now we need to change the training if we want to change it. But I just want to add to one thing. I mean, I think a lot of our people have actually been trained well. But what is lacking, in my opinion, is that on-the-job coaching. So from the point that he comes out of the training center, and it's good if we get a man that's already almost competent, but that on-the-job coaching at the working place is what really, for me, adds that edge to a person's competence.
Thank you very much. I would like to ask a round of applause for our panel members. And then I'd also like to just, I wasn't asked to do any thanks, but to Duncan, Chris, Andre, and all the people that was involved behind the scenes, in front of the scenes, I found today refreshing and fascinating. It was really a valuable day to me. I think this endeavour is going to go a long way. I think to address not only safety issues, but also productivity issues. And I think as miners, we all strive for safe production, isn't it? I mean, that's what's going to make the industry different. So for the effort and the work and the passion and the energy that's going into this, I mean, as sitting on the other side of the fence in industry, I mean, we can really just thank you for that. The panel members, thank you very much. Duncan, over to you.
I'm going to call on Stanford Valachi to just say a word in closing, and then that'll be our day over. So Stan, if you don't mind coming. Yeah, but I just want Stan to come up.